The Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Pride Seeds, Nodulator Pro, and Cruiser Max Vibrance Beans.
Dennis Lange, Pulse Specialist with Manitoba Agriculture, joins us here on Real Agriculture. And Dennis, over the last year, it's really come to light this protein issue in soybeans in, I think, Western Canada, but also other parts of North America, with buyers now reflecting protein discounts in soybean bids, at least in some limited cases. Is there anything, or what do we know in terms of what growers can do to manage protein levels in their soybeans?
Well, I guess the big thing is control the weather. That's the one thing this year that looking at some of our provincial trials this year and looking at some of the different sites that we had around the province, the areas that had the lowest protein content on average at a site is those sites that had the least amount of moisture during that July-August time period. And it was a very dry summer in 2017. Something that we did realize as well, if you actually compare the trials from 2016 and 2017, in 2017, they were in the eastern side of the province. We had one site, Morris, that was actually about 5% lower protein on average compared to the previous year. Melita in the western side of the province was also about 5% lower, but there were some sites that were actually higher than last year. Beausejour, for example, actually had higher protein, just having more moisture at that critical time.
So is it a matter of, first of all, having proper nodulation and then having the moisture to sustain that nodulation long enough?
Well, that's those two can be tied together to some degree. Typically, when growers inoculate their soybeans, they're doing that in spring. The plants start growing, nodules form, and as long as you have a good, consistent supply of moisture through the growing season, those nodules continue to function. What may happen on a dry year is that some of those nodules die off prematurely, so they're not providing nitrogen to the plant later in the growing season where protein content is typically formed. So that could be one explanation why we're seeing that difference. Protein content in Manitoba, typically has been lower than areas in Ontario with similar varieties, and we've seen that in the past. This year, again, there were isolated locations around the province that we did see lower protein content, and other areas that growers didn't have as much of a concern with it. So moving forward, I guess there's really no magic solution for this. The best way to look at it is do what you've been doing in the past. Pick the appropriate variety based on your growing conditions and maturity conditions as well. Look at varieties that have good IDC tolerance, so you want to provide a nice healthy plant. There's really no quick fixes. You can't spray something on it to increase your protein. You can't do any, you can't add more inoculant in spring because, again, adding more inoculant is only going to work so much. It'll give you more nodules, but if you have a year like this where it gets dry again, and extremely dry, then that's not going to make much of a difference. So,
do we know if there are protein differences between the varieties that are on the market right now?
Well, we've done some looking at that through our variety testing program, and that information is available if growers are interested on the seedmanitoba.ca website. But typically, those protein contents are all very close within a site. If you start comparing different locations, there you'll see the overall site average being lower, but generally the varieties between variety A, variety B, and variety C at the same location, there's usually not a huge fluctuation, maybe a 0.5% to 1% at most. That 1 year for that one given site. You go somewhere else, and that variety, the numbers may be reversed.
Okay, and that's maybe an area where in the long term we could see more differences if we make protein a priority in the breeding process.
Down the road, and that's a longer term process.
Yeah.
I guess cautionary notes for growers. If you're, I've had questions from growers asking, well, what's the best soybean variety to plant because I want to make sure I have the highest protein. Well, there's no real answer to that one. You grow with what you're growing. Well, can I spray something on it? Well, no, that's not going to really help you out at all. There's no real magic solution with that. Just continue to do what you do and plant the beans when you're supposed to plant them and hope Mother Nature cooperates.
Yeah, hope we get that rain.
Exactly.
Which is also good for yield too, I guess.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks for taking the time to explain this, Dennis.
Thank you.